strength, power, confidence. We are not here to be the victims of sexual abuse. We're here to disrupt the energy around sexual abuse, helping victims and survivors recreate their story to live an empowered life.
I'm Officer Borders.
And I'm Firefighter Pearce.
Join us as we raise the roof and open the doors to new possibilities. Personal redemption starts here.
Welcome to the Disruptive Response Podcast.
It's your time to shine.
Okay, let's do this. Episode 2.
Let's rock.
All right. So last week we recorded our very first episode of the Disruptive Response Podcast, and we haven't put the first episode out there yet, but we put a teaser out there. So we had a little short, 2-minute part of the podcast episode on Facebook and Instagram, and people have been responding, but nobody's heard the full thing yet. So Grant, how are you feeling right now about all of this?
Well, I got to say, Jelena, it's been an interesting week for me because, there's the thing that pops up in the mind. You may have heard this before, the inferiority complex. And I can tell you that has been, drumming through my head this week, just nobody's going to want this information. But I've had to really keep telling myself that, especially putting out on my whole entire social media, like my family, my friends, know my past, but to put it out there like that, I can tell you there's so much fear that was brought up with that. So it was a very interesting few days, but the light at the end of the tunnel for me was that, look, this is probably not going to be for a huge chunk of people, but for those few people that this could make a difference, that is where I've been able to just push all the fear and all the bullshit stories that goes on in my head out the door and really focus on what we're setting out to do, which is really making a difference for other people's lives that maybe are still stuck in a place in their life where it's the depression or whatever it may be, that living in isolation, and this could be that first space for them to move forward in their life.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And yeah, I have to say, I'm with you on the whole, this week has been scary. It's been a really scary week. I've been feeling really excited about this, but then also a little bit nervous, what if nobody listens, or what if my friends and family are what is she doing? Who is she to do something like this? So it's been an interesting week for me as well, but we have gotten a lot of really good feedback so far on people who can't wait to hear the full episode and can't wait to hear more, and saying this is really awesome. So for anybody listening right now, what are we talking about this? I guess we'll just talk about fear, right? Since that's what you and I are both feeling right now. And for anybody listening or watching us on YouTube on our show, fear is such a natural thing. We all go through it. And for victims of sexual assault, sexual abuse, our fear is just magnified, that much more. But it's something that we're all feeling. So it's something that we should all be talking about, right?
It's actually interesting you brought that up. Fear is a great topic to really bring in light, because it's so true. Even just thinking about fear, and just even the subject matter you were just talking about, there is something around, how do I put this? I think back into the moments where I had to even just raise or open up about this, to instead of living in that silence. And I'm thinking, there was a couple of girlfriends over the years through my 20s that I was spoke to about it, and that was kind of ever it. But to open up to my parents and my best friends that know me very well, that was the fear around doing that, and the fear of them rejecting me was just there was just no way I could do that. And so I think fear is such a great relevant topic for us moving into this episode too, because even now it's amazing how each part of our journey, there's always going to be an element of fear that comes with it, and you just have to essentially just step into that fear and know that there's never a right time to move forward, whether that's just having an open conversation with a family member about what's happened or whatever. That's because you may feel now that if you're listening now and something has happened in your life, part of the story you may say is like I don't need to tell anyone, like I'll be fine. But I know firsthand, this is just for me personally, that I managed to get through life what I would consider quite okay. Like if you looked at over my life, you know, I had all successful jobs. I was doing what I was passionate about, but really, I think it was running away from the past. So you could, in essence, I could never really have true freedom in the sense of like contentment, because any moment that I got to the present moment where I was just enjoying the present, there was the past smashing me in the face, like saying, "Hey, buddy, clear." You know, it's that whole torment that it played on me. So it wasn't until I dealt with it that all of a sudden, and when I say deal with it, it doesn't mean that someone has to go the whole hog and take this person to court. Just being able to open up to a loved one, I can tell you, just completely clears the space for like letting go of your past and being able to move forward in your life. What's your
That's awesome. So, real quick, I want to point out to anybody who's listening or watching that if you guys hear a little bit of a lag or an occasional pause in our audio or in our video, that's because I'm here in America, Grant's over in New Zealand, and there's a 19-hour time difference. And so we try to do these when we both have the opportunity to, but sometimes our internet connection we just don't have any control over. So, hopefully you guys are hearing us okay, seeing us okay. But Grant, I love that you shared that, because it's like you said, when you told a few girlfriends, about your experience, it was kind of like, okay, but then when you had to tell it like your parents and your friends, that have known you forever and that you're super close with, it's so hard to tell the people, that you love, that you're closest with. It's so scary to talk to them about this. And like, how do you even start that conversation? How do you even bring it up? How are they going to respond? And there's so much fear around that. And that fear is something that affects everybody, that's been affected by sexual abuse. For me, like I kind of shared in, last episode, my abuse started when I was like 9 or 10 years old, and it continued until I was 17, because I was too fearful to ever speak up. And it wasn't just the unknowns of, what's going to happen if I tell my mom or an adult or a teacher or a friend, and, is he going to be upset with me? Is he going to get arrested? Is my family going to lose our home because, the finances are going to be affected? There's so many things going through my mind as a little girl. But thinking that like my friends, would feel weird around me. There's just so much fear. Like I could go just on and on and on about that. But I really like that they pointed out that, you eventually got to the place where you were able to tell somebody. And for me, I was never able to do that until my abuse finally ended. And it took me years after to still be able to tell anyone. And it took me therapy as well to be able to still tell anyone. Like talking to a therapist for me was a lot easier than talking to family or friends, because she was a stranger, so she didn't know me personally. So I felt like maybe there was a little less, I don't want to say judgment, because I don't think that people really judge us for what happened to us. But we create that story, like we talked about, last week, the stories that we create in our head. That was a story. We create these stories in our head that people are going to think certain things about us because of what was done to us. And I find the more that I share my story, that no one thinks that. Like all the fear that I'm feeling is really unwarranted fear, because everybody has been so accepting and so understanding and so patient and so just wrapping me up with love and support. And so yeah, it's hard, man, it's hard. But fear can be a good thing, like it's it's purposeful in some areas where, you know, like if you're fearing something, it's for a good reason, and you need to, you know, steer clear. Like, you're fearing that big ass grizzly bear coming up on you, like that's for a reason, you know, that you feel that fear. But as far as like anybody watching or listening who is fearful because they've never shared their story, I think let's address those people, Grant. Like those people who have never told anyone. Let's talk to them right now, because I think those are the people who need to hear from us in this very moment. You know, like what would you say to those people that might be listening right now?
What I would say, if you're listening right now, this could be really heavy for you to listen into, because you know it might be something you haven't dealt with yet, and it's really, really scary to even think about the possibility of talking to anyone. And I love, Jelena, that you just noted the fact that the therapist was somebody who you went to first, because there was no attachment to the person, because you don't know them, so it wasn't a loved one. And I think that raising that awareness around that, I think that just brings home what this will be for us. It's yes, the podcast, yes, it's going to be, you know, a website, but what we're doing for the listeners listening in is that, or watching, is that we're going to create space for them, if they want to feel safe, that they can reach out, and it will be the first person that they can reach out into, and know that it goes no further than us. It's not something that we be sharing their stories through this media channel. It's just something that it might be the first step for them to move forward in their life. So I think that in itself, and just know too, if that is something that you feel you would like to do, it's not going to be an easy choice. Like every part of your being is probably going to tell you, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. And I just know, just from, and Jelena, you said it as well, but even for me, as like, it was when I finally started telling, who did I tell first? Oh my God. It was, I think it might have been my brother. I'm not sure, but it was one of my, I'm sure, I think it was a sibling first, and then it was like my parents, and in fact, I actually, as you sort of are aware from the episode 1, I went and dealt with this guy on my own, because being like, had this feeling in my mind that dealing with the situation and confronting him, and that's all it was ever going to go down. But it ended up going down the road of continuing on further, because it raised something, like it was like this conviction that came up inside me once I confronted him, that like he wasn't taking responsibility for the fact that, you know, because my intention when I went there was to help him get help, because I knew deep down there was, the reason I was able to confront him was I knew that he was doing it to other people. So when I sort of used that as my awareness, I was able to use that protective side of my mindset, where knowing that it was happening to other people. And when he denied any help with his wife, as like when I said, look, let's have a conversation with your wife, let's get you some help around this, because I'm not satisfied that you're going to not be doing this to other people. And he just point blank refused it. So moving forward, what ended up happening with the police, and ended up doing it, this was like a 2-week window. 2 weeks later, I went to the police and did a phone recording with what do you call them? The machines that do all the, like they video you, they count everything. And I did that with it, and a 20-minute phone call, I got him to admit everything that he did. Now that was enough to arrest him, and they brought him in, and he also what's the word I'm looking for? He opened up about also two guys at that time. Now I don't know who those two were, because there was so many over the years that I worked with. But you know, it just proved my point that there was other people. So I've kind of gone off on a tangent there. To bring it back to the listener, that might have made it sound more scary. Like, but just know that you don't have to go down that road, because I think part of opening up to someone, there's a fear that if you open up to someone, they're going to make you go and do something about it. They're going to make you go and try and press charges. And this is where this space right now, bringing it back to us two, that if you want to reach out to us, know that when, like, for that matter, your loved ones aren't necessarily going to make you try and press charges either. It's just something that your loved ones will just be an ear to listen to you. And if you know without doubting in your mind that they're not going to support you, then find that friend or us, whatever that happens to be, that you know 100% in your mind, you're going to feel safe to speak to them, but it's still going to bring up a shitload of fear. It's just a natural thing. And just don't practice. Just the way I like to look at it, if you want to have that conversation with someone, when I would have to, like, even with my family, I didn't think of the conversation I was going to have. I'm just like, I'll just, because I wanted to do it in person. So I just did the small steps. Instead of thinking of the big picture of the conversation I had to have, I broke it down into, like, I'm just going to call them up and say, hey, let's catch up for a coffee, or let's, I made it in bite-sized chunks where I was just like, yep, sweet. So in my mind, I'm just going to catch up for a coffee. And then the next thing was like, yeah, I'm here from a coffee. So I was just like, oh, hey, dude, I just want to have a conversation with you. So when I put in like just a conversation, it broke those fears down into little pieces along the way that allowed me to be able to just, once I was in the conversation, it's like the fear was gone because I was already in the conversation. So I don't know, I hope that kind of, in a nutshell, maybe gives a bit more clarity around options,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, Grant. Like you just said so many like important things there. Like so many, I don't even know where to start right now because you just said so many important things. The first thing is like anybody who is like feeling like, you know what, I don't know these people, but I think maybe I could reach out to them. Please, by all means, Grant and I are here. Like you can contact us on Facebook, on Instagram, on our website, disruptiveresponse.com. We have a contact form there. We are the only ones who get the messages, and we will absolutely respond to you. That's what this is all about. And it's without judgment, without fear, without shame, without any of those things attached to it. And so we are here for you. That's like the whole reason that we're doing this and having conversations is we want these conversations to be, two-way, not just between Grant and I, but between us and you, whoever you might be. And so please do reach out to us. But Grant, like, I want to kind of unpack some of the things you said, because you said that, at first you didn't talk to anyone about it. And I'm not sure like what the time frame was, like how much time passed before you did that, but something within you just welled up and built up to where you were finally like, I can't stay silent anymore. And I think that's really important because I know that there's going to be people who can relate to you, and that, like, whether they do it right away or time passes. I just got to say this. I admire the hell out of you because you went a different route. It wasn't the call the police right away, whatever, which anybody would be absolutely justified in doing. But you were like, I'm going to confront this guy and I'm going to make him realize like he has a problem and he can't be doing this to anybody else. And this is not okay. And I think that that is a really important thing that I'm so glad you pointed that out, because, like, the people that are doing this stuff to us, I don't think they have any idea, of the damage that they're doing, nor will they probably ever, but they're not going to change. And if it's happening, just like I shared a little bit about my story, is that when it was happening to me, I never, ever imagined that my stepdad was also doing it to my brother. I never imagined that he was going to do it to my cousin or to anyone else, and so just you doing that confrontation call with the police and getting him to admit to it and having him convicted, and there's so much power in that, and I love that. And for anybody who is so courageous to do that, but that fear is like can be overwhelming for a lot of us. I know it was overwhelming for you, but for the people who, like me, were not able to confront the person or who were not able to report it to the police, that fear is so overwhelming. And so, like, I just want to say to the listeners or people watching that, like, we get you, we get it, whether whether you have talked to somebody and you've reported it, or whether you haven't talked to anybody or you haven't reported it, wherever you are right now, we get you, and it's okay. Like wherever you are right now is totally okay, because, you know, like me, I was never able to, and it kills me to this day that I didn't. And I wish I would have done things differently. I wish I would have told the police everything right away and had his ass thrown in jail, you know, because I sit here today and he got jail time and house arrest, and he's a registered sex offender and yada yada, you know, for what he did to my cousin. But I always sit here and wonder, is he doing it to somebody else still to this day? And it's hard, you know what, like it, and this is the crap that unfortunately, like, it doesn't ever go away, but we're having conversations about it, you know. And it's so weird because, you know, Grant, like we never know what we're going to talk about on these episodes. I know it's only episode 2, but it's just like we jump on here when we both have the chance and then we just talk, you know, and which is what I love about this. But I just love that, like, we have such different experiences, you and I, and I'm hoping that our audience is going to be able to relate to those differences. And yeah, like you gave so much good information there that, like, I don't know what else to say right now. I'm still unpacking it myself. Is that, like, wherever anybody is in their process with this, it's okay, and that they can reach out and they can talk to somebody. And like you said, like, you know, it was just, hey, can we meet up for coffee? And then you just, you know, hey, by the way, I want to have a conversation with you. And for me, I wasn't able to tell anybody. I could not, to this day, I cannot sit down across from my mom or my sister or my family and talk to them. I can't. I can talk to you. I can talk to a podcast. I can write a book about it, and I can share every, like, if we wanted to get into detail, I can tell y'all every detail of those, like, 7 years of hell. But I can't talk to my mom and my sister, and it's not because they're not willing to listen. They are. I just can't do it. And, you know what I mean? That fear is still there. And it's not a fear of, like, it's a fear of just hurting them, you know, like them feeling that pain. And so, like, there's so many reasons, you guys, like, whatever is going on, whatever's welling up with you inside of you right now, like, it's natural and it's okay, and you're not alone in this. And I think that's really important to recognize, is that we're all different, but it's okay. Like, you're not alone.
Honestly, I just want to acknowledge your courage for just sharing that piece of information, because it brings a lot of light, I believe, to this conversation. Because if you're listening now and you've just heard this conversation between Jelena and myself, if you've heard that I've run the guy and had him charged and convicted, and then you've heard Jelena's where she hasn't, you might be sitting there literally going, that's okay for you, you did that, but there's no chance I'm doing that. And I think this just brings so much power to this conversation, because it's not about having the person charged or convicted. And it's the fact that the person that was from your abuser, he has been charged and convicted, as you said anyway, but it means nothing about you having to confront him personally. You know, that, like, your courage just to come forward. And I mean, I know you haven't had the personal conversation with your mum or your sister, but it's still so powerful, the fact that you can be a beacon for others, what you're doing right now. Like, I don't know if I'm correct here, but I feel like maybe that could have even made you feel inferior and thinking you should have done that. But I just want to know that you don't have to do that, and neither do you ever have to do that. And if you're listening now, it's not something you ever have to do either, because, again, that person who is convicted is more than likely, if this is something I don't even know how you stop these people from doing. Like, even though I've had him charged and convicted, how does that not stop him from doing, other than potentially being a little bit more careful around what he does? You know, it's unfortunately, I feel like the only thing we can do proactively moving forward for our future generations is something that I believe is something very difficult in our societies. And I don't know, I feel America would be very much the same as New Zealand and Australia, and that's around confrontation, because we grow up, and this is speaking for myself, we grow up around parents, and that if there's something they don't agree with, you don't necessarily see them taking a stand for that. Like, I don't agree with that, or like confrontation is one of those things. There's so much fear around wanting to be liked that even when we're getting treated wrong, we still just like, we kind of know it's wrong, but we just deal with it because what we've been modeled around. This is not just parents. It's so many parents out there. In fact, you only have to look at the personality behavior traits. If you've ever heard of the DIS trait, this is like a personality. It's like a evaluation of personality behavior styles. There's something what they call the D, which is basically about, it's roughly 10 to 12%, I think, of people that have I don't want to say dictators, but they're kind of like your Trumps that are like real forward. They'll just say what they think, and you're like, whoa, I can't believe they just said that. That's like they're often business gurus that are just out there like taking massive action. It's not to say that they're always kind of that dictator kind of personality. They're just very action orientated. They find it very easy to make confrontation. But did you know, there's 4 of them? I won't go into detail now, but there's one called the S style, and that's the steady relator. That's 70% of our population. The steady relator likes to fit in with everyone, doesn't like to, ruffle feathers or, rock the boat. And if that's 70% of our population, then there's a big part of our population as children that we have a fear around confrontation. So confrontation is often thought of as something that's very aggressive, but confrontation can be done in a way that's loving. And if we can teach our children to come from that space, they might have to then, if somebody touches them in the most inappropriate way, they might have the power then to be able to go, hey, that's not right. Like, mum and dad said to me, that's not okay. You know what I mean? That's like, it's something we could potentially be moving our podcast into, is leading into the future for our younger generation to, have power around what's wrong and what's right, and being able to confront that.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Because, I love that confrontation. Like, when we're talking about sexual abuse, you hear the word confrontation and people assume, I mean, at least I do, I would guess other people assume that confrontation means confronting the person who did this to you or confronting what happened to you. But I love that idea. Like, if we were to teach our kids, which I personally do, by the way, my kids know my whole story, and they know exactly how to use their voices, but I wasn't raised that way, and I know most kids aren't. That, you know what, like, confrontation is okay. You don't have to go ahead along with anything just because an adult is telling you or an adult's doing it. And if we were to raise our kids to use their voices and to be like, that's not okay, you don't touch me, you don't make me touch you, you don't do this, you don't do that, or and as they get into adulthood, because not all, we experience childhood sexual abuse. It happens to every age, every gender, everybody. And so hell yeah, our kids need to know that it is not okay for anybody to ever do anything like this, and that they do not have to feel any kind of, reservation to use their voice into confronting somebody and saying, that's not okay, you don't do that. And it's funny, my kids sing a song, and it's I don't know how it goes exactly, and I don't want to sing for you because everybody will shut off their their ears, but it's something about a no-no zone. Like, this is my no-no zone, and I don't know, they make like a box from a no-no zone, and I'll have to get the song. It's really funny, but it's true. Like, and they know, like, nobody touches you. But anyways, digressing from that, like, I love that you pointed that out. And one of the things that kind of came up for me that I was just thinking about is I was watching a TED Talk on YouTube, and I don't know her name off the top of my head, but I'll have to get it and post it on social media for people who want to go and look at it. She started off her story explaining that she was going to take her own life. She was so just struggling and depressed, and she was at the point where she picked out her outfit to put with her note, and this is what I want to be buried in, for whoever found her. And she was going to do it. And she picked up the phone and she called the hotline, and she told the person who answered the phone, which was a man, a complete stranger, what her it was a family member, I believe, had done to her. You know, she was sexually abused, and she just wanted to get it off her chest, and she wanted to tell one person before she took her life. And when she got done telling that one person about her being a victim of sexual abuse, the person on the other end of the phone said, "Congratulations, I am so proud of you." And that was what kept her alive. Congratulations, I am so proud of you. I am so proud of you for being brave. I'm so proud of you for using your voice. I'm so proud of you for overcoming that fear, because even though you're scared right now, and even though that fear is like overwhelming you, that fear is causing physical reactions in your body, it's causing mental reactions, behavioral reactions. You know, like we all, you know, when you get scared, like your whole body is affected. And he said, congratulations, you did it anyways. And that changed her life. And she had something to live for, you know. And it's something so simple as just like, there's so much power in just talking to a complete stranger, to a family member, to a friend, to a therapist, to anybody. There's so much power in talking, and that's why we're having these conversations, because we want to normalize it. We want to disrupt the silence around sexual abuse. We want to disrupt the negative energy. Like, these don't have to be bad conversations. They don't have to be like these overwhelming. Yes, we're gonna feel those ways at times, but we can also have conversations just like we're having right now, where we're empowering each other, we're supporting each other, we're sharing our differences, our similarities, but it comes from a place where, like, we don't have to live in fear, you know. Like, we talked last week about stories that we create in our head, but this conversation we're having now about the fear of us surrounding just talking about this, like, it's scary as hell, you guys. I know that it's scary as hell, but it is the first step in healing. It's the first step in growing. It's the first step in all of this journey that you're going to go on, wherever you're at right now. It's until you start talking about it, you're just keeping it inside, and it's you might think you have it under control, but I think Grant and I both can speak from experience is that it's not under control. It's gonna well up and it's gonna explode eventually, and you got to let that out, you know. And so talk about it. Reach out to us, reach out to a friend, reach out to a family, do it anonymously. There's so many great places that A Voice for the Innocent, for example, they have a website where you can share your story and you can read other people's stories, and it's completely anonymous. But just seeing that there's so many people who can relate to you, and so many people who are not, I don't want to say accepting, that's not like the word, but like to share your story and to get that kind of positive support back, you know, to where you feel like there's no shame in this. There's no shame in what any of us have been through. It's not our fault. We didn't ask for any of this. Like, we didn't bring it on ourselves. Like, the shame is with our abusers. It's not with us. And so I just hope anybody listening feels that they can give themselves permission to move past the fear. And it doesn't mean that the fear is going to go away or not be there. The fear is going to be there. It's just doing it anyways is what is bravery is all about. And you know, being courageous and it takes bravery, and it takes, you know, being courageous to tell one person. But man, once you do, like, it's a weight lifted off of your shoulder. It so is.
It definitely is. Like, I love the fact you just pointed that out. It is such a powerful feeling. Like, I just want to say, even too, like, when you talked about that story of the lady that reached out to the helpline, like, I was full blown getting goose pimples when you're telling that story, because it just reminded me, like, maybe it was just when the lady that was the officer, when I did that confrontation call at the police station, when she came out and she's like, that was freaking amazing what you just did. You have no idea how much power you have. And it was like, it's amazing how those, whether it doesn't matter what context it's in, whether, that was obviously confronting, but for her just reaching out to a helper who just said, congratulations, like, that is literally the power that will come from you sharing your story. And if you are, how am I going to put this? I guess, guys, like, don't worry about, because you may even feel like, oh, I don't want to be that person. Actually, no, this might come from the blog space. But as guys, and I think this is a great mix that we have, but you being, female, me, male, to share our stories, because there is so many men out there that this has happened to. And I think as a guy, because as a guy, for us to admit vulnerability is just like, wait, what? What's vulnerability? No, we don't do that shit. We're macho, like, and maybe that's just my take on the world, because I grew up, playing football and was in very, like, masculine roles, and still am to this day as a professional firefighter. So there's that part, if you want to, there's part of, and I'm not sure if it's the same for women, but I know for me, like, I didn't want to reach out because then I felt like I was a victim. And so if you do reach out, just to be telling a friend, you're not a victim, you're literally just telling your story. And I can tell you, as you just raised that awareness, like, it had so much power behind just telling that one person, regardless, like, so I just wanted to put that kind of space on it from a guy's perspective, because if you're a guy listening in and you never have dealt with it, then it might look a little bit different. You might there's that fear that you don't want to be seen as that guy. But I'm telling you straight out, you are not weak by stretch of imagination. And I can tell you, like, if you're a guy as well, your friends and family are going to 100% support you, because that is exactly what's happened for me. In fact, it just enhanced the quality of my friendships with those mates, because knowing that they had my back 100% and didn't give it, like, they didn't give a shit. Like, that was just, when I say they didn't give a shit, not they gave a shit about me, but they didn't give a shit about the fact that it was just like, sweet, man, awesome. Like, it was just no big deal. Like, so one of the biggest things that I want to probably touch on is we build up the story in our head so huge that story is so massive in our heads that's why the fear is so big. So when you tell your story with someone, they're not in that same story as you. They're just going to be there, and they'll be open armed, they'll be open minded. They'll be like, it's all good. So, just like that story you just told me when that lady reached out, like, that was so freaking powerful.
Yeah. And, like, that's the thing is that this is all, like, when you share your experience, share your story, when you talk to somebody, it's empowering you. Like, it's power. It's getting the power back, because let's be real. When you've experienced sexual trauma, sexual abuse, you feel powerless. You have no control over the things that were done to you, done to your body, done against your will. You felt powerless in that moment. You felt powerless. You might still be feeling powerless. And that power starts returning to you the more that you talk about it, the more that you give yourself permission not to just talk about it, but to process it and to say, I'm making the choice that I'm not going to let this define me. I'm going to, it's hard to deal with this. Trust me, like, we'll talk about this, and this is for a whole nother episode, because I'll tell you all the stupid shit that I did to try to ignore this. Okay. I tried everything to ignore this, thinking that it would just go away, and it didn't go away, and it blew up my freaking life. But that's another story for another day. But the more that you release that fear and you start talking about it, the more power that you're going to get back. And having that power back, it just empowers you to heal that much more. And so I love that you pointed that out. And then the other thing is that, we hold back so much because we're worried about other people's opinions. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, nobody else's opinion matters. Like, excuse my language, but this is how many fucks you should give about other people's opinions, you know? And if you're thinking that other people are going to have an opinion about it, just like Grant pointed out, like he was so worried about how his, you know, his mates were going to respond. And they were like, dude, I'm sorry that happened to you. Like, if you need me, I'm here, but otherwise, like, let's, you know, it was not a big deal in the sense that they didn't make it you feel awkward about it, or they didn't, you know, they didn't act any differently around you. And other people's opinions, you know, and how they're going to respond, like, that's holding you back, and that's creating fear. And it's speaking from somebody who was fearful about, because I was so worried about what other people were going to think. And then once I did start talking about it, I realized that it wasn't an awkward thing, you know. It didn't have to be. It was hard conversations, sure, especially with close family members, but they were supportive. And like, I think that you guys, as soon as you start you know, opening up and talking, you're gonna find that people are supportive, and that it's gonna just lift that weight off of your shoulders, and it's going to give you the power back. And that's the huge in your process of healing, is just getting that power back. And the more you do it, the more power that you're gonna feel, and it's just gonna, you know, it's a snowball, like a ripple effect from there. As far as like it working your way up, you can't just go from having this kind of trauma to being okay one day. Like, let's be real, like, we're never, there's triggers, there's like, I have great days, I have horrible days, there's days where I don't even like think about any of this, and then there's weeks that I will be literally like in bed not talking to any of my friends because I'm so like I have depression, anxiety, all that stuff. And so we're not saying any of this is going to be easy, we're not saying any of this is going to be going away, but we're saying that it gets better, but you have to start with giving yourself permission and taking that power back by using your voice and disrupting the silence. Like, you do not have to stay silent. That's the worst thing you could do for yourself, is to stay silent. And like Grant already pointed out, it's not about going and filing a police report. It's not about having a conviction. It's not about dealing with all that. You can deal with those as it comes up in steps, and you have the decision. You get to make the choice on how you handle that. But reach out to somebody and just talk to somebody. Don't be silent about it, because it's only going to do you more harm, more damage. And that's not what life is about, you know? I don't know. What do you think, Grant?
Yeah, just that last touch point was so powerful. For me personally, I think that is something, because I was 30 by the time I finally dealt with it. The problems that showed up for my life became like anxiety and all these different things. They got worse and worse as the years went by, because I wasn't actually, and they shape up in funny ways as well. And it wasn't until all of a sudden that I made that first mark and just talked to a friend. It was really interesting. What happened for me was like, it was that first little chip of like, I'm feeling a little bit more confident. And I think that's what, if you whoever you are right now, wherever you're from, if you're in that space right now where you know it's terrifying, just know that literally that one conversation, as terrifying as that is, I'd actually have to say that that's probably the worst one of all of them. Once you make that first mark and just talk to someone, that what's the word I'm looking for there? What am I trying to say? That basically supports you, then that will be the moment that gives you that feeling of confidence to start letting go of the shame and the guilt that you carry with your story. Because the shame and the guilt, or the low self-worth, that's the biggest problem here, is that when you're in those defining spaces of shame, guilt, and low self-worth, that just makes it 10 times harder. So that one little moment you take that step into the fear and have that conversation, all of a sudden a small piece of the shame, guilt, and self-worth fades away, and a new space of confidence and self-worth starts to take the place. And that's all of a sudden when you start having this momentum. Now that momentum, you know, for me, years between speaking to people, but funny enough, each time I spoke to someone, the gaps between each one got smaller and smaller. And all, you know, it's again, there is no wrong and right to how you're going to deal with this, but just know, again, that through myself, Jelena, we will be here to be a solid rock. You need someone to reach out to.
Yep. Heck yeah. And you know, that you just made the perfect point, is that when you start taking these little baby steps, you know, like it creates that space for all those the fear and the shame and the negative feelings. It creates it starts to push those out of the way, and you start to, the self-worth and the confidence and everything, it's making room for that to come in. So you have to push those feelings, those things, that you have to push them out of the way to make room for all the good stuff that's going to come, that's going to follow. And it's going to take time, but you're literally making space for all the goodness in your life that you're deserving of and that you're worthy of. And I mean, Grant and I are living proof that, like, if you're in a place right now where you're like, this is just too much, like I can't deal with this, it's just overwhelming my life, hang in there, like you're gonna get through this. We've pushed those things aside slowly, and we've made room for the good in our life, and it's showing up, and it's happening, and it's possible. So it's possible, and you deserve it, and you're worthy of it. And we're gonna get into that even more, you guys, and we're running out of time for this episode, but come back for our next episode. You can subscribe on iTunes, on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and then you can also go over to YouTube to watch us. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook as the Disruptive Response, and then also you can go to disruptiveresponse.com and connect with us over there on our website. We do have some resources posted, so if you've never spoken to anybody, or maybe you have, but you need some more support, we do have a support page on there, some resources. So whether you're in the United States like me, or you're over in Australia, New Zealand like Grant, there's resources for all of those places. And it's not all the resources, but it's a really good starting point for you. And so if you need someone to talk to, a hotline, just resources, head on over to disruptiveresponse.com. Check those out. Send us a little note while you're there, and let us know, you know, how you're feeling, what you want to hear us talk about. If you have any questions for us, we want to interact with you. We want this to be a conversation. And then also on Facebook, we have the Disruptive Responders community. And that's where we're wanting you guys to come and join us there and jump in, so we can actually continue these conversations. You know, we're limited here on our time, but we want to continue these conversations with you guys over there, and offer the peer support in that space, in a safe space where you don't have to worry about the shame. I mean, all that is, we're all gonna kick that to the curb together. We're gonna disrupt the fear, and we're gonna tell fear to fuck off, and we're gonna get to the point where we are empowered and we can move forward. And you know what? Speaking of telling fear to F off, I wrote a letter to fear, and I wrote, "Dear Fear," and I said everything I needed to say to fear. And it was like a breakup letter, so to speak, with fear. Like, I broke up with fear, and I wrote fear a letter saying, this is why I'm breaking up with you. Kind of like a junior high school thing to do, you know? But I wrote that, and it was a blog post that I did a while back. I'm gonna have to get that and put that on our website. So if anybody is like ready to tell fear to F off, maybe reading this will help you feel a little energy on how you can go about, like, saying, you know what, fear, I'm done with you. You have no place in my life. You're not going to live in my head rent free. Like, we're done. I'm breaking up with you. Sayonara. I deserve better. And you do. You deserve better than the fear that's living inside. So let's kick fear to the curb. But yeah, come back next week for another episode, and we can't wait to talk some more with you. Any final thoughts, Grant?
All I can say is I'm super excited to, you know, launch into our next episodes. And on a final note, if you're listening now, like, yeah, our story is sexual abuse, but I think this is going to be very relative for any case that's around abuse, whether it's domestic violence. You know, any abuse in nature, this may be something that you might know someone, this might still relate to them, you know, to help them move forward in their life. So, you know that this could be quite broad for a lot of different people and what's happened in their life. So, you know, if this has helped you in any way, please, like, and you know somebody else that this might impact, please reach out to them and help them to plug into our podcast and all the other channels that Jelena has just spoken of. So that's all I've got, Jelena. Thank you so much for tonight. It's been a pleasure as usual to have this conversation with you.
Awesome. All right. Well, yeah. See you guys next week.
Yo.